Episode 268, Ireland, Part 3. So, the point of this episode, I think for me, sorry the noise there, I'm just trying to stop me, I'm using a dictaphone to record the audio. That's old school. I want to round out this part 3 about Ireland, around 1994, early 95. So I'm just going to look at a few of the things I did, places I visited, some of the interesting bits. 1995, the following year, was quite a year for me. I'm going to give a little cheeky little preview here now. I'm going to put it on the screen. Oh my God, what's this? It's somebody who can't write very well. I did look at some length for my 1994 year planner. So basically I became an engineer in 1994. I don't know what it was, April or May or something like that, and had this series of I'm going to Ireland and all the rest of it. But 1995, the beginning of 95, is really when I started to travel full on, and just I'm going to go over this very quickly. But there's a lot of Ireland in here, and there's things that we can talk about there as well. So, it's just if you don't watch this in 4K, maybe it's just a jumble of scribble on a piece of paper. I don't know. This is 4K, so if you have a big TV, maybe that'll help. I can sort of read this on a little screen, so hopefully you'll be okay. We have a ridiculously large cursor, by the way. I've actually, in my office, I've got 3 screens, all different sizes. I've got a 55-inch 4K screen on the wall, a 24-inch 1080p, a 28-inch 4K, and the cursor going between the 3 was a nightmare. And I try and adjust it so that the screens are roughly right in terms of they're not all level. You see, that's the point, because they're different sizes. Anyhow, I decided I needed a big cursor, so that's my big cursor bad boy, and hopefully you can see that very clearly there now. So just quickly looking at 1995, and obviously I want to really more focus on Ireland for this episode. I'm sure there's plenty of time to go through some of these other places. I do talk about some of these places in other podcasts, so there's a disclaimer straight away. If there's any repetition, that's why. But 1995 for me started with a bang. Here we can see in January I did a bit of work just after Christmas. J Jolly's, I can't remember where that was, somewhere in England. I can't remember. And I got something called Esbro. So Esbro is in Holland. It's based on the Tuesday, the 3rd of January, I got on a ferry and went, we're going to Holland, and I was there for about a week, So that's interesting. So that was the first time I've gone beyond the British Isles, gone beyond Ireland and the UK, Spent a bit of time, Ross, I'm trying to remember where Ross Parr was, I'm struggling at the moment. Highbury Poultry, vaguely remember that. I did spend some time in Padley's. Padley's was quite big, they had a good few factories in Norfolk. Alnwick, Bury St Edmunds, I was there for a couple of days. And then on the Friday, back to Ireland again, a Loveland Christmas. Interesting name, having Christmas in there. This is an Irish connection. Well, I'm going to say they're in Ballymoney. Not sure that's strictly true. I stayed in Ballymoney, I think. They were near Ballymoney anyway. And I was there, in this case I was there for 2 weeks looking at this, roughly 2 weeks, week and a half. So Loveland Christmas is like a pork factory, so pigs had come in to be slaughtered, butchered, that sort of stuff, And I stayed in Ballymoney and just going back the midst of time, 25 years ago, can you believe this? I think it was the Brown Trout was the hotel. And it was interesting because it was sort of split in two, the hotel. There was a hotel with rooms, and then I think there was chalets. I think that's how it was. And I only ever remember staying in like the chalet type, I think. I don't think I had a room. I can't really remember. I did share a room with a man, a chalet with a man. I have actually shared a cabin, a room with another man during my career. Maybe I'll make an episode for that because it's quite interesting, you know. Maybe in this day and age that wouldn't be a thing. They wouldn't do that, you know. Obviously, I never shared a room with a woman that was completely, you know, whatever. But I did share a cabin at sea with a man and you know, room in in the Brown Trout, a chalet with a guy, and other stuff. So I think that's interesting, and I think, I wasn't I wasn't eager to do it, I have to say, and in some ways it was forced upon me. But that's for another episode. We'll keep that to one side now, you know. So yeah, Loveland Christmas, and that's in Ballymoney, and I could probably do a whole episode. I could talk about an hour about Loveland Christmas. It's quite interesting, you know. But I'm just gonna go through this. So this is sort of the next year after I first come to Ireland, you know, and worked in Ireland. So that's the first one. There's other places here. These are all around England. Bannon Poultry, Padley's Annick, Bannon Poultry, Webster's, Fessenda, Sun Valley, Highbury, Anglo-Dutch Meats in Eastbourne. That's right in the southern part of England on the coast. It's sort of, I don't know, it's nestled between Bournemouth and Brighton. It's you know, it's on that coast anyway. And the thing about I shouldn't really be distracting from Ireland, should I? But it's like a lot of old people retired there. Maybe it's different now. It could be real hip and trendy, Eastbourne. But Anglo-Dutch Meats anyway. It was very interesting. Again, I could talk for hours about Anglo-Dutch Meats and the work that I did there. But so I went there in February. But you get in a feel anyway. I went from Holland. I was in Northern Ireland again, across Norfolk, you know, England, southern part of England as well. Back to Loveland Christmas in March there for a good time. And then towards the end of March, I was going like Farm Fed, Omar Meats, and Monaghan. So I did a bit of a grand tour there, if ever there was one. April, Diapers, that's in England. Went to France for the first time. Yeah, the 15th of April. LDC. I don't know where they are. It's not far from Le Mans, I think, where they're located. That in itself was I don't want to use the word a wake-up call, but I learned an awful lot about people during that trip. I was basically surrounded by Dutch engineers. I think there was 10 or 12 of them, you know, and it was interesting. And I was like the only guy there who was doing this system, and it was pretty, you know, one of those. The first time I've gone to a country the first language is in English. Never been to France before. There was a lot going on there, but you know, looking back now, it was a great experience, and that's for certainly for another episode. Scroll down the list. Bernard Matthews. I'm sure you've heard of Bernard Matthews. If you're Irish or English, you've probably heard of him. You know, dead now. But his company, they really revolutionised turkey. Turkey was a real expensive product up until very recently. I mean, you know, it was considered like only for Christmas, you know, and basically he's made it into one of the cheapest poultry products there is. But anyhow, that's again, I could spend hours talking about Bernard Matthews. The training course, interested in May, training course Farm Fed. I do remember these 3 days. These were actually in England, so I think 2 or 3 key people from Farm Fed in Coleraine came over. Did a bit of a training course there. You know, the training course was good, but yeah, I don't think it turned out fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to scroll across quite quickly now. So then, middle of May, I went to China. I do have a few podcasts, audio only, podcasts about going to China, Ying County and Penglai. That's when I went 25 years ago, last May, you know, and I'll probably revisit those with a little bit of video maybe as well. And some of the plan was I was going to go back there this year or next year, you know, around the 25 year mark. But I think COVID's put paid to that. I'm not really travelling at all with COVID. I'm sort of in that I'm sort of high risk, I think, in some ways, you know. But anyway, that's when I went to China. Came back in June, Wintertons and Twyford, yeah, it's all sort of English stuff, that's next year. Buxton, sorry about that. Buxton, Flixton, a few other places as well. July is interesting, so I was on holiday for a week. Don't remember it. I say it was mostly just relaxing. It was quite a tiring, busy, even for someone in their early 20s, full of energy. It was still a hectic lifestyle, you know. And I went to Monaghan. Monaghan Poultry there is coming up as the 8th of July. I was there for a couple of weeks, you know. Then I had a rest day on the 20th. Back to England again. So that was July. August, most of August I spent in Galtee Meats. Certainly if you're Irish, you'll know about Galtee Meats. They are still in business, I believe. The Galtee Meats I'm talking about here is in Mitchelstown, which is about, I don't know, 2 hours. It's quicker now. There's more motorways, but it's about 2 hours drive from Dublin. It's about an hour outside of Cork, an hour closer if you like, outside of Cork. So you know, and there are a lot to talk about Galtee Meats. I spent a lot of time there. I mean, you can just see here from from my 1995 year planner. I was there for pretty much the whole of August. I came back there at the end of August for a few days off, bank holiday, Wintertons, which is in England, and then boom, back again in September. Spent a bit of time in September. Looks like I came back for a few days, you know. Jeez, that's some travelling now. So I was there for, you know, till the 9th of September, and then boom, back in England for a while, and I was back again in Galtee pretty much at the end of the month. A little trip to Padley's Annex Distribution in the middle. I don't know how those 2 days, I'm trying to remember what would have happened there. You know, I mean, I could have come back on the ferry, done a couple of days and gone back again. It's possible. I could have flown back for those. But I was back in Galtee Meats on the Tuesday anyway. And then I did Farm Fed as well in Coleraine for the weekend, the 23rd, 24th of September. And then back to Galtee Meats in Mitchelstown to the end of the month there. Rest of the, you know, most of October, Dalehead Foods, Highbury, it's all English stuff, Premier Scunthorpe. Yeah, a few holidays as well. Jeez, I seem to be doing well for holidays now. It looks like it was a good year, you know. But and holidays in November. Jeez, I took some. Well, you see, I'd worked so much the first 6 months. I had to use my holidays up, so you can see this is what was going on there. But I was back to Galtee Meats there in November, 17th of November. I was back there again. Then back to England again, you know. And then December was pretty much an English month. Perry Foods in Wolverhampton, Devon Crest, Harris, Ipswich, and holidays, more holidays. But again, I took so little holidays at the beginning of the year, you know, that's what had to happen. So now this is obviously Ireland Part 3. So I'm just going to focus on that now for the rest of this podcast. So yeah, Loveland Christmas is in near Ballymoney anyway, and I'll just see if I've got oh look, there's a map. I've got a bit of nice satellite imagery now as well, so we can hear this is Northern Ireland here now. So Loveland Christmas was interesting. I'm thinking back, so they had no systems, and the first stage of the new installation was to put in this. I talk about it in the other episodes. It's like a ring. The network was like a big circle. So say I think we were going to put 12 systems. 12 sounds about right into Loveland Christmas. So it meant the cable had to go to the control room, wherever the computer was going to be. From there to the first scale with the computer, then to the next one and the next one, and so on all the way around. You know, and I remember their on-site engineers, who would normally do things like that, wouldn't refuse to do it. They wouldn't do it, you know. So basically, I had to do it. Me and another guy did it. It wasn't just me now. So, but for 2 weeks, I actually did a podcast. I think it's called on my hands and knees for 2 weeks, and no word of a lie, it was 2 weeks on my hands and knees. So basically we had to run the cables. The cable was basically an insulated cable, a 2-core cable, with a screen, a metal screen, you know. And we basically, you know, started where the server room was going to be, and then we ran the cable, boom, to the next point, to the next point, to the next point, you know. And at one point, and I really hate heights. I'm not a fan of heights, you know. I think it's intelligence, fearing heights, you know. But at one point I had to cross this little board. I think I probably mentioned this before. I apologise if you heard this before. But like a little plank, and below me, about 30 feet below me, was a false ceiling. And then below that there was a room, you know. But having to crawl along this plank, holding the cable, holding the cable. What? Oh man, that was tough. I still, to this day, 20 odd years later, 26 years later, I remember that, you know, 25 years later. But, and it was a tough gig, you know. The ceiling void wouldn't be as tall as a room like this. It's 8'8", it's a standard size room. The ceiling could be this high, it could be 30 feet, it could be 4 feet or 5 feet, you know, depending as you go through. And I do remember I was quite big into PPE, personal protection equipment, safety equipment then. So I had a hard hat, always wore my hard hat, you know. I think I had ear defenders, I don't think I ever used them, but I had ear defenders, you know. And I had the steel toe cap shoes, you know. And I remember in London Christmas, the cable had to go from, it was a separate building. I seem to remember it's where the engineers were, but also one part of the factory. And it had to go like a long tunnel. It was like a square tunnel, which there was services along it, but it was the height whereby, it wasn't this high, it was taller than that. But you could crouch down and go through it, and that's it, you know. But it was a long tunnel. Could have been 50 metres. It wasn't a short tunnel. And I remember I had the cable, I ran the cable, whatever. Had to get to the other side. And I remember thinking, to hell with this, I'm going to give it a bit of I'm going to run crawl. Is there such a thing, you know? So I did a run crawl, and I was giving it loads. I had my head down doing this. But at some point, as I'm giving it loads with the cable in my hand, it's crawling, running down this thing, I must have just lifted my head a little bit, you know? And I was going so fast, my helmet hit whatever girder, and it shot off my head. Shoom! Now, to be fair, it wasn't my head, so that's a bonus. And I have a story about hitting my head as well. But anyway, the hat just flew in front of me, and I stopped dead, like, you know. Anyway, I picked the hat up, you know, a big chunk out the hat, like a big scar, as it were, and put it back on, carried on. But I was there for 2 weeks with an engineer, who was like, he was more of an electrician than anything, he wasn't a computer guy. And we ran all the cables, you know, and what they'd done is, the trays had been laid like a metal tray, that had been done, but they refused to do the cable, so obviously one company must have put the trays in, and then we had to do, you know, so we spent 2 weeks there. I remember we were leaving, and the head engineer was in his office reading the newspaper. Great job if you can get it. And we said, okay, yeah, we're going now, that cable's run now, so the next step is to start installing, you know, the equipment, like, and he's there with the newspaper. I did hear a story, I don't know if something had upset him, or I don't know, with the company, I don't know, I sort of don't care now either, but he sort of just pulled the newspaper down that he was reading, and he said, well, you need to fit all those covers to those trays before you go. And there was a pile of them. So basically we'd ran, must have been, I don't know, 300 or 400, maybe it was 500 metres of cable across this trunk, you know, to all different parts of the ceiling, you know. And we were going, like, we've been there 2 weeks, it took us 2 weeks, the two of us. And then he goes, are you going to put the lids on those now, you know? We didn't. As I understand this, nothing connected with me, of course. The place did burn down a while later. I can't remember how much equipment I installed there. I did go back a few times. Certainly my diary says that I went back a few times. So I did install quite a bit of equipment, but I believe it burned down anyway before it was really properly used, you know. So I've visited many factories all over the world, all over the UK and Ireland. A good proportion have burnt down, you know, nothing to do with me, but they have, and it's just, I don't know what it is, you know, and I think none of them are, like, you know, malicious. It's just, maybe it's electrical fault. Well, I didn't have any electricity in it, so it wasn't me, you know. But so that was Loveland Christmas, unusual name. I remember Loveland Christmas quite well with pigs because it was the first time. I mean, I've been in the chicken factories mostly. I went into a bovine factory, all our meats as well, which I'll talk about in a while. But pigs were a whole new creature for me. I mean, I don't consider myself to be an animal lover, you know, but then again, I don't believe in cruelty either, you know. So just because I'm not like obsessed with animal welfare doesn't mean I don't want it, you know. But I was interested to see the part where they killed the pigs. Maybe when they were alive more than the part where they killed them, you know, because that's not really going to be a nice thing, is it, you know? But I was interested, you know, and not in a morbid way or anything like that. And I remember the wagons coming in with the pigs into Loveland Christmas, and not a lot, but occasionally they would lose, one would die en route, you know, from the farmers, whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were treated very, very well. The animal welfare was excellent now. I know there's laws, thank God there's laws now, in Europe and the UK that, you know, protects animal welfare, which is fantastic, you know. But you would maybe occasionally lose one, and you know what? They were very good, the staff and stuff, and there'd always be like a vet and to do an autopsy, find out what happened, you know. But I remember the other pigs would react. They'd be mourning, they'd make this noise, you know, and I can't even describe it to you, this noise, you know. So there's a moth just flown in, but the noise they make is just wow, you know. It's very emotional, and I found it pretty pretty moving, you know. It really was. And I remember looking at the pigs as they're coming in for the slaughter, you know. I'm not going to go into any detail about the whole, you know, it's pretty obvious what happens, but it's sort of done in a humane way. I mean, humane's not to do it at all, of course, but I mean, if you're going to have to, then it is done in a humane way. But I remember the pigs looking me in the eye, you know, and I found that was quite powerful stuff, because chickens don't, you know. Cows don't really, you know. They're a big lumbering, they're sort of not really with it. But pigs now, wow. They're looking at you, you know, and they're looking into your eyes, you know. They're not just looking at you. That's the thing with cows, they just sort of look at you. But the pigs were looking into your eyes when you make eye contact now, you know. So it wasn't a place I wanted to be now, let's put it that way. When they've been slaughtered. But like I say, it's in the UK. There's some good laws and good restrictions on how, you know, they are treated well. I appreciate there's a lot of people out there don't believe in, you know, at all, and I get that, you know. As I got older, I get that more and more. I do, you know, fully understand the whole, you know, vegetarian, vegan thing, you know, more and more actually, you know. But anyhow, so that was Loveland Christmas, and that was it was interesting, you know. I learned a lot. I also learned, I don't know if it's any comforts to anybody, but that the pig, they use everything. There pretty much is nothing wasted, you know. And whether it's the hooves, the jowls, you know, the face of the pig, you know, maybe you could argue that's a gift to people, is that, you know, everything is used, you know. But yeah, you know, if you're squeamish, you know, I'm sure if they were mass bigger than us, they'd eat us, wouldn't they? But I do like a bit of ham now, to be fair, a bit of bacon. It's lovely, it's fantastic, you know. So the whole slaughter bit and everything else, not a fan of that though. So that was Loveland Christmas. I noticed the dark hedges are marked on here. I did actually wonder if I've driven through the dark hedges. I hadn't. When I saw it, obviously this is from Game of Thrones. I sort of recognised the trees going like that. And I was working in farm fed chickens, and I went down a road, one of the main roads in Coleraine, I think it was. And I was driving towards, I'm assuming I was driving towards Belfast. Maybe I was driving I think it was Belfast. And one of the roads you go down, there's trees at the side, and the way the road is and the amount of traffic it's had, it causes the roots to move a little bit. And they're like that, you know. And I got talking to one. There was an old guy. I don't know what he was, in his 60s, in the factory in Coleraine, and he was telling me that it's hypnotic when you're driving along the road and the trees are leaning in. And he said a lot of people, it hypnotises them and they actually drive into a tree. It's like, it has a weird effect. But when I saw the Dark Ages anyway, that reminded me of that. So there are roads in Northern Ireland that are, the trees are very close, and instead of being upright, they've slowly moved inwards. I don't know if that's still the case. It was 25 years ago, So that's Lovely Christmas in Ballymoney, and the brown trout. I haven't googled it. I think it was might be a golf course near it. I'm sure if anybody's listening to this, they go, oh yeah, no, that, maybe they live near it. But anyway, Ballymoney, yeah. So I spent a lot of time for a place I think that burned down, and nothing's left. All the work, all the weeks and weeks, and I don't know. It's just crazy, Lurgan I spoke about. I think Ballymena deserves a mention. Where's Ballymena? Here's Ballymena. So I was talking about the hat incident, running down the tunnel. We're crouching and running. Oh, geez, I was superhuman in those days, not like now. And I was going along and bang, hit the helmet. It flew. Luckily, it wasn't my head. So I had a job to do in Ballymena. And if you're from Northern Ireland and from Ireland, you probably know about O'Kane Poultry, and they have a factory in Ballymena. And basically, me and a guy from the company I work for in the night flew over from England, and I didn't like the guy, to be honest. Big fella. He was all right. I mean, sort of harmless enough, but he was huge fella. He used to work for British Aerospace, building some of the planes, and we were coming into land in Belfast City, and he said, he was involved with building the plane he was on, right? And that worried me a little bit. But he says to me, geez, do you know what, Jason, what happens if something I did wrong years ago building this plane, if it suddenly went wrong now? I thought, you fucking idiot. But anyhow, he'd worked for British Aerospace building the ATPs anyway. That was the thing. I think it was an ATP, I don't know what he was flying on, but he apparently he'd been involved in building it. He wasn't technically minded, so hopefully they didn't let him too near anything without his work being checked. But the plane was fine, it was okay. He's the sort of guy you don't want to get a flight with. But anyhow, we got to Ballymena and O'Kane Poultry, and the equipment we was working on, it's sort of hard to explain. I think the company's gone out of business and they don't make the products anymore, but it was called an Autoway. And essentially what it was like a very large, long, oblong platform thing, and it had a chain on it, and the chain was attached to little trays, and product would end up in these trays, and it'd go around, weigh it, and put it into drop it at a certain point. And once it dropped so much in one point, the light would come on a button. You press the button once you've emptied you put a bag there or something, I don't know. And once it's full, the light comes on, you seal the bag, get a new bag, and you press the button. So basically it was just sorting the products, into these little hoppers, It's called an Autoway. But essentially it was a big heavy metal chain in like an oval shape, like a race course, like it was, the ends were rounded, And it had these big metal covers to cover it. So when it was in operation, you'd have these metal covers down, and you'd lift the cover up. There's a handle on each cover. There was about 6 covers, say, or 8 covers. You could lift the cover up, and it was real well designed. So it had like this gas strut. So as you lifted it up, it would stay up. Boom, fantastic. For the operators, with the few times they had to open it, it was handy, So anyhow, when you use this equipment for a long time, the chain wears out. I don't know if it stretches. Do you know what? I can't even be bothered now what happens to it, but it had to be replaced. So we were sort of lucky. I think the local engineers had replaced it. I think somebody had done it all the work, So I was literally with this guy for, thank God, only for a long weekend. It sounds more romantic than it was. I was only there with him for a long weekend. And we stayed in Ballymena. And just to calibrate a few things on the machine, he sort of built a couple of these. He knew how they worked. That's fucking, debatable. So anyway, we're on the machine. The chain's been replaced. We're doing some work. And at one point, I had to lift one of the hoods up, you know, and check something on the chain, and the chain was right down the back, like in the middle of the machine. So I lifted the thing up, and it was fine. It was up, you know. I had my hat on. I always had my helmet on. I was real good like that. But as I'm leaning, I couldn't get my head in, so I took. You can see where this is going. Okay. I took my helmet off, and I put my head in. And at that moment, this fantastically designed gas strut decided to not hold up the lid anymore, and it came down on my head. I'm not quite sure where it hit me. I think the back of my head more than anything, which is probably a good place. I think if you're going to be hit on the head, you know, maybe that's why I've still got hair there, you know. But so it hit me on the head. I was fine. I wasn't concussed. I wasn't unconscious or anything. You know, I was fine. It hurt. It was sore for a good while, you know. But what's the chances the moment I take my helmet off and the bloody thing falls on me, you know. Anyhow, so as you know, as luck would have it, your man then he went. You know, I go to these places. I'll be there for weeks. These guys are blowing and blow out. He was there weekend. I had to go back home to his wife and kids, you know. And I was still out there, and I was out there for a good few weeks and working other sites, you know. But yeah, so I never took my helmet off, and the one occasion, my hard hat, one occasion when I did, I got a whack on the bloody head. So yeah, so that's Ballymena. I did mention briefly Omagh meets. I do pronounce Omagh wrong, by the way. I pronounce it in an English manner. Here's Omagh now. It seems to be pronounced Omagh. Very quickly, Omagh. I think that's how it's pronounced locally. I usually get funny looks off people when I pronounce it, but they know I'm English. I mean, come on, that has to be the excuse, you know. And that was basically bovine, you know, cows factory. Yeah, interesting. One escaped, and you know they sort of don't know what to do. It's a bit like chickens. If you let chickens, they don't really know what to do, you know. And this particular, I think it was a cow. I don't think it was a bull. I think it was a cow. Wandered around the car park, literally smashing cars and denting cars up. So I'm assuming it was recaptured. But how do you capture a cow? You know, Jesus. Yeah. Well, it did a lot of damage to the car park. You know. So I was there for a while. I also stayed in a hotel not so far away from there, doing some of the work that I was doing. And there was a time where fireworks, which, you know, a lot of countries are legal, you know, most of the UK is legal. It's not legal in Ireland, interestingly, the fireworks are still not legal. But in Northern Ireland, there was a moment in the 90s, I don't know, it was 95, 96, they made fireworks legal, you know. Now I was staying in a hotel in Omagh, and it was opposite, it was like nestled between the IUC station, which are very heavily, at that time, very heavily fortified, the police station. And there was also an army barracks as well. So the hotel was sort of equidistant between the two, you know. And in those days, the police cars didn't have any, they didn't say police on them, you know. You know they were police cars because they were so heavy with all the bulletproof and the armour, you'd know them going past. But, and this hotel, you know, typical, some admin in England coming into this hotel. Maybe it was cheap, you know. Maybe it was lovely. Maybe it was, you know. And my lasting memories, I remember hearing a lot of helicopter noises. That's obviously from the army barracks, you know. But I remember that was quite a lot. But the biggest thing I remember once was, I think I checked in at one point, and I don't know what I checked in, going up the stairs, you know, to the room, you know. And I just got to the staircase, and there was this almighty firework bang, a banger, you know, which doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's nothing. But this was an almighty bang, and in those days, you know, when you was between, you know, the IUC station, the police station, and the barracks, you know, you hear a big bang and you go, and I think everybody, you know, just froze for a moment, you know, maybe me longer than anybody else because I'm a wuss from England, you know, but everybody just stopped, like, stunned, and then everybody realised, oh, you know, it's those fireworks, you know, that are now legal, you know. But it was quite a moment anyway, you know.